Christmas in my family growing up was huge. It was a huge deal. It remains a huge deal. And my parents went above and beyond to ensure that I believe in like the magic of Christmas. I was maybe 14 years old when I found out that Santa doesn't exist. There was incredible things that my parents did to ensure that I continued to believe in him, such as we had finished unwrapping our stockings and my dad goes, what's out there on the roof? And we were like, what do you mean? And we ran to the window and he was like, I think I see something on the roof. And there were presents dropped out on the roof as if they had fallen out of Santa's sleigh when he was like landing on the roof. My mom had cut a potato into the shape of a hoof and there were footprints of the reindeer's hooves in the snow leading to the presents on the roof. And that's why I believed in Santa Claus until I was fucking 14 years old, because like who wouldn't want to believe in that? This Christmas, though I won't be looking for Santa Claus's sleigh tracks in the snow, I will be making these Feta and Za'atar biscuits. Not only are they laminated with butter the way a classic biscuit is, but they're also laminated with feta, which means that I'm thinly slicing a chunk of feta and layering it into the dough and kind of folding the dough over it so that it becomes one with the different striated layers of the dough. And that way you see these like planks of feta kind of sitting amongst all of the flaky biscuit layers. And they are maybe best bite of the year for me. Step one, chill your butter. If the butter stays cold before they go in the oven, the steam that the butter releases will aid in the puff and the rise and the flaky layers of the biscuit. I'm taking 1.5 sticks here of butter, and I'm just gonna freeze it for a couple of minutes so that it gets really, really cold. And while we do that, we'll make the dry ingredient mixture. The rest of this we will save because this is going to turn into that sizzly melted za'atar butter that got brushed on top. Step two, combine the dries. So we have flour and baking powder, and then salt and sugar, and it's just a little bit of sugar. I think it's 1/2 teaspoon. 1 teaspoon of kosher salt, 1.5 tablespoons of za'atar. So I'm eyeballing this because I know what that looks like. And then reserving more of the za'atar for later on. And I'm gonna whisk that all together. I'm gonna set that aside and quickly slice up this feta. So this is 6 ounces of feta in block form, which is how you should purchase it. And then I'm just gonna slice it as thinly as possible. This is like 1/8 of an inch thick plank. It's okay if they break apart. They're ultimately going to break down as you roll the dough, but you want them as thin as possible. Dry ingredients, sliced feta, buttermilk, and now we're gonna go get our frozen butter. This is a new technique that I haven't done historically with my biscuit recipes and I'm loving, which is using the large holes of a box grater, so just like where you would normally grate cheese, and taking the frozen butter and grating it in long shards. And this way you don't have to overhandle the butter and it doesn't get warm, and it evenly distributes throughout. And this helps create like tons of tiny little pockets of butter that create steam and flakiness. So that's what it looks like grated. So now I'm gonna gently use my hands to toss the butter into the dry ingredients and coat it. Lightly sort of fluff the butter in between your fingers and let it sprinkle down out of your hands. You don't need to use any force here because we've already grated the butter into lots of little pieces, and so it's just like really nice and delicate little incorporation moment happening. And then once we feel like all the butter is nicely distributed in the flour, I'm gonna make a well right in the center, just using my hands. And I'm gonna pour in 1 cup of buttermilk right into the well. And just sort of like start working in circles to incorporate the buttermilk into the dough. And you will see it will start to hydrate and start to form clumps that resemble dough. And you'll just keep working until most of the shaggy floury bits feel like they have formed a cohesive sort of mass with the buttermilk. I forget, it's a technique I saw someone else do. I think I saw the grated butter trick for pie dough. Oh. We're doing construction on our bedroom right now. I know.
It's sounds like there's a dying cat going into your wall.
It literally sounds like a cat is being strangled. So we've got some dough now, and it's looking nice and clumpy and less floury now. And so I'm just gonna use my hands to like kind of knead and pat this into somewhat of a rectangular mass here. And you don't have to be super precise. You wanna have a little flour nearby. This is called bench flour, and it's just there to make sure that your biscuit dough doesn't stick to the cutting board. So make sure you got a little bit on your work surface. Pat it out into a rectangle here. Kind of doesn't matter what size or shape. I'm gonna take about 1/3 of the feta and scatter it over the top. And then I'm basically just folding like an envelope in order to enclose the feta inside the dough. And we're gonna do that a couple more times, patting it out in between, making sure that we've got a little bench flour going in between. You can flour your hands if you need. And then again, another 1/3, and you can even just pat it in half at this point as it gets a little bit thicker, pressing it down. And then one more time with the remaining feta, fold in half. And then this is like kind of where we enter our final form of the dough. And you can see it's now like a really nice homogeneous mass, and the feta has all been incorporated into the inside. And I'm now going to pat it into a 6.5 by 4.5 inch rectangle. You don't really need to worry too much about that measurement. You should keep your eye more on the height. So we're looking for like 1.5 inch thick rectangle basically. And then you can kind of square up the sides. So this looks pretty good. I've been working with this for a couple minutes now, and so I'm gonna get it back into the fridge so that it chills and firms up again, and then we will cut it into 6 different pieces right before it goes into the oven. Woof, it's getting a little cuckoo bananas in here. That just needs to firm up for like 10 or 15 minutes. So the last thing we have to do here is sizzle a little bit of za'atar in our remaining butter. So I have the remaining 4 tablespoons of butter here. I'm gonna put them in a small saucepan or sauce pot. This is like about the right size. I think this is 1.5 quarts. And we're gonna head over to the stove. And I'm setting it over medium heat. I'm just gonna melt the butter. As a side note, many of you guys have been asking me what cookware I use, and I think I've talked about my Dutch ovens in the past, but I haven't talked about the stainless steel cookware that I have been using for years, and this is made by a company named Legend. Very sturdy, very reliable, very even heat. You'll see this is a well-worn pot because I use it every single day. It's a brand that I feel like a lot of people don't know about, but they make really great cookware, so check it out. Once the butter is melted, I'm gonna go in with the remaining za'atar. So I have 1.5 tablespoons left. Basically, the butter is going to help to bloom and sizzle and bring out all the like toasty, sesame, herby flavors in the za'atar. And then that will get brushed all over the biscuits. Okay, so here is what sizzled za'atar butter looks like. Chili biscuits. I am transferring back to my work surface. And then now that they're nice and cold, I'm gonna cut them into 6 squares. So it's helpful to flour your knife so that the knife doesn't stick. And then you're just gonna cut right down the middle. And you can see like how the feta is incorporated into the dough here. And then I'm gonna cut these each into thirds. And then right before they go in the oven, we just give them a little brush of the sizzle butter right on top. And you won't use all of the butter. We're gonna save some of it, and we're gonna do even more of it right when they come out of the oven nice and hot. And then we go into a 425-degree oven over here. And we will rotate them halfway through so that they brown evenly all around. 20 to 25 minutes. Dun, 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 dun. Woo! Ow! Eek! Oh, mama. Okay, so this is what a fluff and puff biscuit looks like. You can see the layers, you can see the feta, and now we have a little bit more of this za'atar butter that I'm going to brush on top. Butters. Woo! It's time to eat one of these because I've been sitting here for like 10 minutes sniffing them. They smell so good. I'm gonna take a bite of this one.
That was good.
It's so fucking good. Look at all that flaky, tender dough. They're just so correct. That was the best thing I've ever made. This is my best recipe. My best recipe. Try one of these ones. Tender and fluffy. It's so good.
It's the best. It's the best. You conquered the biscuit, Molly.
Yeah.
You did it.
I'm never developing another biscuit recipe again, ever.
No, this is the last one. This is
Can't top it. Energy, 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 energy.